poetry on the internet. We're talking with J.J. Webb, Cyberpoet from the first hour. Where do technology and art meet? There are a few answers to that question, but here in Boulder Creek, J.J. Webb turned from technology to poetry.
Yes.
And not poetry alone, but poetry on the web.
Yes, without a doubt. I was one of the... I wrote the first program that became known as McAfee's Virus Scan. And McAfee Associates was very heavily into electronic distribution of software, and it was just a natural thing to move into the internet, right? With that, and from there, coupled with the fact that I had worked in aerospace for such a long time and was intimate with the Usenet, right? The electronic distribution of software or the electronic distribution of literature, who cares? It's the same thing.
So you became one of the first webmasters too, and your name is kind of
yeah. People used to accuse me. Did you change your name? No, I didn't. I've always been J.J. Webb.
But you became a webmaster in the early days of the internet. You became a webmaster here in Boulder Creek, Crucio.com.
Yes. What we did is that right at the very beginning, right before as cello was being developed, all right, we were starting the commercial enterprise known as Crucio, and then one day we had this decision when we came face to face with cello, whether we should put up a website or whether we should continue on the Gopher, setting up Gopher sites and things like that.
Just to explain, the Gophers that was a technology that is almost forgotten now to give access to files that were on, say, university computers, but it was not as easy to use as what you now call the World Wide Web. That's
correct. I mean, what it was the same kind of distribution, only it was complete and total text-based. File-based. You would get text, but there were no pictures. So we decided that after cello was very instrumental. I mean, in getting everybody's attention. If Andreessen hadn't come by and Mosaic and Netscape hadn't happened, I don't think that the cello would have been forgotten. I think that the cello would have been developed into
something similar as what we now call these browsers. Huh?
Right, because cello was one of the first browsers, right, and it is what got the internet service providers to pay attention to the World Wide Web rather than just the internet. It let the internet service providers know that the World Wide Web was going to be a significant piece of their internet service. All right? So it was significant. And then when Mosaic, Andreessen, Netscape started hitting things, it just ran like mad. I mean, it was great. We started by putting up a library. Immediately, we decided that literature and art this is a medium for poets and artists.
Because it's cheap, you can read it if you like, and you don't have to buy books.
Well, all of that's true. What it does is that it makes freedom of the press. Truly freedom of the press. I mean, until the World Wide Web came around, freedom of the press was pretty much the bailiwick of those who could afford to own the press. All right? Well, once you can get a $25 a month internet service account, you're a publisher. All right? So all of the small press people who have for years and years and years made little chapbooks and things like that could now, instead of just reaching 250 to 500 people on a print run, now they could put up a web page and presto, thousands of hits per year. My poetry page draws about 5,000 people a year. If I was putting out a chapbook per year, right, reaching that kind of audience would be very difficult.
How do we find your poetry page?
You go,
HTTPW.
you go to www.cruiseio.com/tilde HAWK. 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 The Hawk is my art and literary e-zine for the World Wide Web. Cruise.io has quite a few literary sites. We have Zero City, The Hawk, Persona Non Grata. Mostly The Hawk is West Coast people. Persona Non Grata is middle of the country. Kurt Nimmo is the editor there.
Does this increase in visibility for people? Has that increased the quality of poetry that you feel?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. We're entering a golden age, without a doubt. There is, I mean, just in sheer weight of numbers of people coming, right? The number of Eliots or Hemingways that are in this vast population who have never had access to traditional publication methods is now going to come to the world in droves. And there's going to be a lot of Drek. I mean a lot of Drek. But there are going to be Hemingways there. There are going to be T.S. Eliots there. So the quality of the literature is just going to go berserk. We're already seeing it. We're already seeing it. People who have never have access to, HarperCollins or Albert Knopf or, the big publishers. I mean, they're not going to publish poetry. They're not going to publish short fiction unless, you go through and pay the dues, this huge amount of dues.
First, you then must become a very good salesman of yourself and a marketeer before you make it to become published. And now you say it becomes easier.
It becomes easier in the fact of I can get an audience quickly. I put up a page. I register with all the sites. Somebody like you or anybody sits down and searches on the word poetry. They're going to find, in amongst all these poets that are listed, they're going to find J.J. Webb. If there's millions of people, 5,000 or 6,000 of them are going to come to my site.
Maybe, but don't you take the place of the big publishers in the old days, because you run Cruisio / whatever Hawk, you run an e-zine, as we call it, about poetry. So you have a same position because you can decide who gets in the top position.
It's a business. I mean, we're selling internet service, right? We want you to come. We want you to come to the World Wide Web and become a web customer, right? Sell me a website for however few dollars it is, and it's ridiculously low amount. Then you can put up your own magazine like that. I mean, there's nothing special about J.J. Webb putting up a magazine other than the fact of I've got a bunch of time to sit around and do it. All right?
But you put your personal choice into selecting the poets.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there will be. I mean, the search engines are the technology of the future, right? Find me something that's worth looking at. I've got this humongous
mountain of data.
Yeah, and find me something that will actually go through and find something of value in there is a significant problem. So people editors. Not only are we going to enter a golden age of writers, we're going to enter a golden age of editors and people like that who
people who pick and choose among this enormous amount of, because a search engine at the moment is a very primitive thing. You type in your name and you get hundreds of places where you can find it.
Yes, it will eventually evolve into a science. It's already beginning to evolve into a science. I mean, you can take classes somewhere about there are several people who teach how to use Alta Vista, how to use the search engine so you can actually get what you're looking for, because it all comes down to the keywords you're searching on.
Yeah, is that true? I mean, that seems like sometimes we talk about textualization of the culture, that people who are good at writing email, writing letters, made it in society.
That's always been. That's been since, go back to the Egyptians, the scribes were the priests. That's the way it has always been. If you are literate, you are in the forefront of your culture.
Yes, but then the high priest of the culture were the poets, and they turned. Well, they made the most direct link between the experience and the word.
Without a doubt, they also wrote the Psalms. Right, right. So I mean, it's a very short jump from literature to sacred words. All right, it's a very short jump from the high priest to the true definition of what the culture is. All right, so yeah, I mean, yeah, the
some people
guys are the new high priests. Okay.
Years ago, I asked Gerald Lanier, how would a poem look in virtual reality? And I never got a real answer, but I thought that was an important question. What is the poetry of the next century? Is it still words, or is it colors, or is it HTML code?
Well, I mean, poetry will always be poetry, and the major publishers will always major print publishers will always be around, right? But the extension of the very static, here it is on the page, and it's only there. It's the only thing you can do from this page is read this page or turn to another page. Right now, if I have a poem and pictures and I have a mouse, I can go a million places from this page. Right? I mean, I don't have this page. What I have is.
But do we want that?
Of course we want that. Of course we want that. I mean, it's one of the most exciting things happening. I mean, it is what's driving this whole thing. I mean, it's the fastest growing industry that ever was, isn't it? I mean, it's the people are rushing to embrace it at an amazing clip. They want to do more than just sit passively and watch their television set.
Is that really true?
That's true. All we've really done is take the CRT and move it from a passive device into an interactive device.
But is Joe Sixpack, who likes to be a couch potato and sit there and watch the game, is he gonna not only read poetry but make poetry interactively, do something with all this technology?
Yeah, you're looking at Joe Sixpack. That's who I am. I have no.
JJ, that's not totally true, because in the past you worked in technology. You worked at a Star Wars program. You developed telescopes in space. You are not Joe Sixpack, are you?
I'm Joe Sixpack in the fact of is I'm a middle-educated middle American. Right, and that's where I came from. Middle America, middle-class family, who wanted to have, when he was a little kid, his own library of movies. So it was inevitable that VCRs would come about. That wanted to have something more exciting than just sitting back and watching The Creature from the Black Lagoon. I want to be able to go, no, I don't like the way that creature looks. Make it a different looking creature, right? And have it instantaneously do that. Well, we're doing that in slow motion on the World Wide Web. World Wide Web is slow motion CD-ROMs. CD-ROMs are slow motion movies, right? Both with an interactive component to it, which is very exciting, and which is what's leading so many people to this technology. Look at how fast it's growing. It's like 8,000, 10,000% a year. That's the growth here.
Well, what I hear is that 100% growth over the past year, and expected to slow down a bit. My question is really, you see yourself as this average guy. In fact, you are what I see as the centers of excellence we don't recognize. As you say, middle-class person, but someone who opened his eyes.
Yeah, but it was provided for me. I mean, it was, all along the line, every step of the way, because of, I'm one of the baby boomers. I don't know if there's baby booms in.
They're all over the world.
Okay, I'm one of the baby boomers, and the sheer size of the class, right, moving through society, right, demanded that as a kid I wanted to have this. And I was probably one of a million middle-class kids who wanted the same things, and one of them was bound to go, well, this is how easy it is to do, right? And they would do it. So, I mean, it's not like I was blazing any trail. I just stumbled along doing the things that I wanted to do, right? As did Andreessen, as did a lot of people, okay?
But you picked up a fairly strong belief in technology, but that's where you came from and you still believe. But
my father was an engineer, handed me a schematic when I was 13 years of age, okay? So, but how many kids built crystal radios? I mean, how many kids back in the 50s and 60s built crystal radios?
A lot, I did.
Right. So, I mean, we are creatures of our culture. We are creatures of our time on the planet, right? And our time on the planet said, okay, we're going to accelerate the communications between the people of the world of
okay, but let me take this image. More and more pages get on the web, and the information content per page get less and less and less. I mean, you can click endlessly. So the information per page gets less. Is your daughter?
Yes.
Yeah. Hello. But on the other hand, we have the poet. Now, the poet tries to cram a maximum of information in a minimum of words.
Yes.
So those are two cross courses, yeah?
Now, I mean, granted, a poet, today's poet is blessed in the fact of for the first time we have a worldwide audience at our command, obtained relatively inexpensively, and so I mean, and we're blessed. We are the first of the electronic age poets. And recognizing that is probably the only thing that is the only credit that I can take, other than for what's going on. In the fact that realizing that I was one of a class of people known as the first of the electronic age poets, and that we had a huge voice in compared to our ancestors, because the entertainment center had moved from around the book to around the CRT.
But again, poetry is words, relatively simple words. You can put them on paper, you can put them on the screen. People like Mark Pesce, the people that do Vermal, the people that work on multimedia. Gee, there's a Macworld at the moment, and all these people are believing that it should be multimedia. And poetry is very simple, usually.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it is...
It's a paradox, isn't it? A simple message in a very complex medium.
But because of the conciseness of it, right, it can be delivered with the technology that we have. It can be delivered with the highest impact of any of the art forms over this medium. All right? I mean, the See You See Me, the Vermal, all that other stuff. It still takes a heavy expenditure, upfront expenditure for the equipment, and still the technology is not there to make it this smooth, seamless thing that we would like to have. But poetry, it's a simple page, a couple of pictures, and its maximum impact delivered quickest. I mean, because everything is, how fast can I get these bytes down that line from California to Amsterdam? I mean, it's of all the art forms, the poetry is the...
But when we see a new poetry, you already mentioned it's a few pictures and some text. But I can imagine that someone now or in the future is going to make a poem that the words are maybe not so great, but he fits it in on some beautiful picture, and or he makes it move. Whatever, he finds a new form that really moves us, because that's what poetry is supposed to do: change our perception of reality. Yeah.
Well, and it's to communicate the human condition to those people that might have forgotten that humanity is what it's all about. Right.
Humanity is what it's all about. Okay, J. Webb, what kind of human are you?
What kind of human am I? I'm a monitor lizard. No, it's the last poem I wrote. Monitor lizard. I'm a technologist, And I mean, I was handed a schematic when I was 13 years of age. My father was an engineer for Westinghouse. You know, I had pretty much my career handed to me because of, you know, going from building a radio, knowing what a schematic is at that young an age, I worked on the first mini computers, or the first mini computers. I worked on the first microprocessors. I moved into doing some of the first software, you know, for the new stuff. I mean, I didn't have any grand plan. I was just walking down the street, right? Oh yeah, I think I'll go over here. Oh, I think I'll go over here.
Yeah, but somewhere along the line, you decided to write poetry.
Oh no, I was writing poetry from the time I was a kid. My mother was an art gallery administrator and very much into the arts, and she would read me poetry as bedtime stories instead of bedtime stories. Right? So I acquired a love of poetry at a very early age. Then as I got older, I realized that, you know, that so I mean I would read and write poetry. I just wouldn't show it to anybody. Right? And then I suppose as a teenager, I learned that it was a pretty good way to attract the attention of young girls. So it was, you know, presto. I mean, hey, let's keep doing this. And so, but it never was. The thought was never that it would be a vocation. Right? Poetry was, you know, I mean, poetry shouldn't be a vocation. Poetry should be don't
you feel that writing poetry at times is it's an inner drive that you cannot escape?
Oh yeah,
it's not a vocation; it's a necessity.
It's a human trick. That's what I call them. I mean, whether you play the saxophone or write poetry or draw or like Alan run around with cameras all the time, right? It's a human trick. It's something that makes us uniquely human in the fact of leaving a record of our experiences, a reflection of our humanity for future generations, or for, you know, whoever just shows up to say, hey, I like this. Right? I mean, it is an attention-getting device, right?
That is it, but it's also a way to remember the experiences. I mean, that's for me. Sometimes I have experience, and I feel the need to write them down in words that then later bring that back.
Yeah, that's one of them. But the driving force of I guess it's like the pioneer, the driving force to overcome, you know, the complacency of where you are at this particular second, all right, to expand who you are, to overcome loneliness, I mean, whatever the motivation is that is uniquely human, that makes us reach out. Right? That's the internet, poetry. It's all part and parcel of the same motivation. It's a
way to connect.
It's a way to connect. It's a way to attract young girls.
Is it?
Well, I mean, video games are. I've never much been interested in video games, or computer games for that matter, until very recently. Now that there are games that can be played one against many, right? We can get on the internet and play Quake, 4 people, or Descent, or oh God, there's a ton of them now. All internet capable, all, you know, there's a server somewhere, 4 or 5 people can come in and play against each other. Now, that interests me far more than just playing the computer. The computer is just is a mathematical equation, right? And playing a mathematical equation is boring. Right? No matter how good it is. I mean, it can either beat you all the time or lose all the time. But it's
the people on the other side that you like.
It's the humanity that's on the other side that is the driving thing that will eventually drive me to computer games. I'll probably never get deeply into it like Russell or a few of the other people I know. Oops, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the interaction with people. I mean,
Are you a poet because it was the easiest way to express yourself, to connect?
No, I'm a poet because I couldn't play the guitar. I cast around for. Well, I mean, I had this love of poetry that my mother instilled in me. When I got older, I would write poetry on napkins. The napkins would get thrown away. Eventually, a woman named Diane Rockledge gave me a journal. Said, "Here, write these down. You shouldn't be throwing them away." When I was 17, maybe 18 years of age. So, again, poetry was just something I just kind of, oh, okay, let me go this way. No great thought into it, oh yeah, I think this is the thing for me. And just hey, I wrote this poem. Hey, it got somebody's attention. Hey, I like that. That felt good. Let's do that again.
Well, but part of that is that you are an expressive personality. That I wouldn't call performing poetry is part of your game.
Yes, without a doubt.
How do you do that on the internet?
Right now, it's very difficult because the technology isn't there. I mean, I have lots of friends who have made tapes and things like that. Eventually, when the technology is there, these things will come out of the woodwork. I'm sure he'll charge me a lot of money for my own pictures. Right?
But then you will be a performing poet again on the web with using webcast, video, audio.
See you, see me, whatever it is that when the technology is that all the houses are wired up at 128, right, at ISDN speeds. That's about how fast the technology has to be there. I mean,
but if that happens, I mean, we're here in Boulder Creek, and what I like about Boulder Creek that sometimes at night or in the evening. We sit out and look at the trees or go in the hot tub or make a fire and connect. We're here. Yes?
I do that all the time.
Yeah, it's nice.
I insist on it.
But isn't the internet like a better replacement for that human contact?
No, it's just an additional tool. It's just an additional tool. What enables me to live in Shangri-La and be the recluse that I am, right, is the fact that I have computers that are hooked to the world. Right? I can sit down and I am at the same time a recluse. I am also interconnected to the whole world like that. I mean, I want some information, right? If I go to one of the search places, or I send email to Al, or hey, who was that guy I just met? The other day. I mean, and can get that information.
Yeah, but this is like a real connection. You go on the internet, you write a mail, or you read something. Now, in the old days, there were poets or thinkers or priests or holy people. They would sit in the woods, have their thoughts, write a poetry, maybe not even on paper, and they would still attract a following and a connection.
Yeah. So
aren't we losing with all this technology the capabilities that we used to have? That I'm talking about radiation. I'm talking about a connection. No.
No, in fact, it's exactly the opposite. I mean, the seclusion of the forest is mine. The world as an audience is mine. I've got both.
That's a good line, actually.
Both
worlds now.
Both worlds, right this minute. Right? It's Shangri-La. I'm not kidding. It is. I am in Shangri-La. I have the inspiration of standing in a forest watching the eagles fly, because they're here, right? And watching the squirrel population be devastated. And at the same time, I communicate with people all over the world on a daily basis. Right? Now, there's no nobility in that. There's no. It's like the world's one great big chair. It's hey, welcome to comfort. This is This is what we've been driving at. As the technology gets better, the speeds increase, and that's the only thing that is needed to make this, I foresee in the future that holograms and all kinds of advances to the CRT. I mean, the Webb will still be there, but what will come up will not be, on this flat screen.
Not a two-dimensional thing.
Yeah, it will be a three-dimensional kind of thing. So I'll be able to walk in the park with someone who's in Amsterdam, right? And and he'll see me where he is, and I'll see him where I am, and we'll be able to participate with one another. It's and yet I'll still have that ability to go, okay, I turn it off, complete solitude. All right. Wow, that's.
While we're waiting for this 3D technology, could you read us a poem just to finish this, so that people can see that living 97, that we still have to use video cameras in 3D is not yet there, but the art is.
I saw the most amazing things today. A grumpy-eyed imp holding morning at bay, doves holding hands with nothing to say, one pixie dancing the moonlight away. I saw regal eyes shining, the smile of a fox, enchanted laughs floating from a brightly wrapped box, a diamond the size of a very large rock, and a silver ship landing at a crystalline dock. Now you would think that a man who had watched gypsies sing on a mountain of gold would have seen everything, unless, of course, he knew that he'd never set eyes on you. How's that?
J.J. Webb in Boulder Creek. A bridge between the old and the new, here and now, and cyberspace. Thank you, J.J.
Thank you. Something, what? Which one? Obviously she's got something in mind. What poem are you looking for, honey?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Wait a second. I have a new battery.
Hey, Jersey Joe, don't you know this job was all I really needed? Keeps me out of trouble on the fight nights when the white flights go sailing with their leader. Those boys sure fly high. I've been blinded by their sparkle, wounded by their smiles, their orange exiles, and the coolness of their marble. But now I'm just a working stiff, and I ain't got a thing they think they need. Just got this job, and you and me and Jersey Joe, don't you know, this job was all I needed. Now talk about a blizzard. It was Christmas Eve, and I never felt so cold against the snow. You know, Lucy keeps a running list of places I won't go, and a torch for all the hangouts where she's been busted. Angel Dustin ain't my style, and she knows it, but every time she's close enough, she blows it. 602 time headed for the stores, boosting black bandanas, waltzing wickedly with whores. Oh, Lucy, won't you come on home? I got a job now. Don't you know you're needed? Just got this job, and you and me and Jersey Joe, don't you know this job was all I needed. Jersey Joe.